Hi, class 3 and 4. I hope you had a lovely weekend and you're ready to start your learning today. So we are going to continue on from last week and continue reading the Twits. So today we're going to be looking at 3 chapters. Mrs. Twit comes ballooning down, Mr. Twit gets a horrid shock, and then the house, the tree, and the monkey tree. Okay, let's get started. So we'll do what we did last week. If you want to pause me and read it yourself, you can. Or if you just want to sit back and enjoy, I will read to you. Mrs. Twit comes ballooning down. Mrs. Twit may have been ugly, and she may have been beastly, but she was not stupid. High up there in the sky, she had a bright idea. If I can get rid of some of these balloons, she said to herself, I will stop going up and start coming down. She began biting through the strings that held the balloons to her wrists and arms and necks and hair. Each time she bit through a string and let the balloon float away, the upward pull got less and her rate of climb slowed down. When she had bitten through 20 strings, she stopped going up altogether. She stayed still in the air. She bit through one more string. Very, very slowly, she began to float downwards. It was a calm day. There was no wind at all. And because of this, Mrs. Twit had gone absolutely straight up. She now began to come absolutely straight down. As she floated gently down, Mrs. Twit's petticoat billowed out like a parachute, showing her long knickers. It was a grand sight on a glorious day, and thousands of birds came flying in from miles around to stare at this extraordinary old woman in the sky. Mr. Twit gets a horrid shock. Mr. Twit, who thought he had seen his ugly wife for the last time, was sitting in the garden celebrating with a mug of beer. Silently, Mrs. Twit came floating down. When she was about the height of the house above Mr. Twit, she suddenly called out at the top of her voice, Here I come, you grizzly old grunion, you rotten old turnip, you filthy old frumpet. Mr. Twit jumped as though he'd been stung by a giant wasp. He dropped his beer. He looked up. He gaped, he gasped, he gurgled. A few choking sounds came out of his mouth. Ugh, he said, Ah! Ouch! I'll get you for this, shouted Mrs. Twit. She was floating down right on top of him. She was purple with rage and slashing the air with her long walking stick, which she had somehow managed to hang on to all the time. I'll swish you to a swazzle, she shouted. I'll swish you to a swizzle. I'll nash you to a nozzle. I'll nosh you to a nazzle. And before Mr. Twit had time to run away, this bundle of balloons and petticoats and fiery fury landed right on top of him, lashing out with the stick and cracking him all over his body. The house, the tree, and the monkey cage. But that's enough of that. We can't go on forever watching these two disgusting people doing disgusting things to each other. We must get ahead with this story. Here is a picture of Mr. and Mrs. Twit's house and garden. Some house. It looks like a prison, and not a window anywhere. Who wants windows? Mr. Twit had said when they were building it. Who wants every Tom, Dick and Harry peeping in to see what you're doing? It didn't occur to Mr. Twit that windows were meant mainly for looking out of, not for looking into. And what do you think of that ghastly garden? Mrs. Twit was the gardener. She was very good at growing thistles and stinging nettles. I always grow plenty of spiky thistles and plenty of stinging nettles, she used to say. They keep out nasty nosy little children. Near the house you can see Mr. Twit's work shed. To one side there is the big dead tree. It never has any leaves on it because it's dead. And not far from the tree you can see the monkey cage. There are 4 monkeys in it. They belong to Mr. Twit. You will hear about them later. Okay guys, so I hope you enjoyed the next 3 chapters of the Twits. Today I've got 5 questions for you to answer. So I'll read through them now, and then on the next slide I've given you sentence starters. So if you want to pause and use those, that's fine. And then when you're ready, you can come back for the answers. So number 1 asks, how did Mrs. Twit get down from the sky in the end? Number 2, do you think Mr. Twit was happy to see his wife on her return? How does Roald Dahl give us this impression? So that's your opinion, guys. Number 3, Who do you think is speaking at the start of the chapter, the house, the tree and the monkey cage? And number 4, why did Mr. Twit not want windows in his house? And finally, number 5, why does Mrs. Twit grow thistles and stinging nettles in her garden? There are your sentence starters for you guys. So if you want to just pause me now, have a go at answering those, and then when you're ready, unpause me and we'll go through the answers together. So I'm hoping you've all had a go at answering the questions. I'm going to go through the answers for you now. So number 1 asked you, how did Mrs. Twit get down from the sky in the end? So I put that Mrs. Twit got down from the sky by biting through the strings of the balloons and then floated back down to earth. Okay, if you've put something along those lines, give yourself a big tick. Do you think Mr. Twit was happy to see his wife on her return? Now, as I said, this was your opinion, so as long as you backed it up with a reason, I'm more than happy for you to give yourself a tick. But I've put, I think Mr. Twit is very unhappy to see his wife when she returns. Roald Dahl makes us think this because of the way he describes Mr. Twit's reaction. He jumped as though he had been stung by a giant wasp. He couldn't get his words out and he simply made noises. So to me, that showed that he wasn't very happy at all because he was really shocked and unhappy. So anything along those lines would be great. So who do you think is speaking at the start of the chapter? So I think someone who knows the Twits is speaking at the start of the chapter because they seem to know a lot about them. So it could be maybe one of the children in the village that have seen them or somebody that lives close by. You might have put that simply that it was Roald Dahl, the author. Again, this was your opinion. So whatever you put, as long as you can back up why you think it, that is fine. Number 4, so why did they not want windows in his house? So Mr. Twit did not want windows in his house because he didn't want anybody looking into his house. And that's what it says on that page pretty much exactly. So if you quoted the page, that's fine as well. Just give yourself a big tick. And finally, why did Mrs. Twit grow thistles and stinging nettles in her garden? So Mrs. Twit grows thistles and stinging nettles in her garden to keep children out. Okay guys, I hope you found that all okay. Any problems, feel free to email me and we will carry on reading that tomorrow.
Good morning class 3 and 4. We are here today. I'll be doing your writing with you again this week, and we are on Monday the 8th of June. So pause now so you can get your date written in your book, and then we will go on to our grammar activity. Okay, so in our warm-up this week, we are going to be identifying and using prepositions. Okay, so have a little think. What is a preposition? The clue is in the name. So the prepositions tell us where something is. If you think about the word position, okay, we've got the suffix, the prefix pre, and we're looking at where things are. So words that tell us where something is. Okay. They tell us where the noun or the pronoun in a sentence is positioned. Okay, so we've got some examples here. If you're talking about the boy, you might say the boy is next to the box, the boy is on the box, the boy is under the box, the boy is behind the box, the boy is in front of the box, or the boy is between two boxes. Okay, these words here, they've all told us the position, where that person is, where that noun is. Okay, so here we've got 3 different types of words. Okay, we've got some determiners, adverbs, and prepositions. So have a little go in your book at organising these into correct groups. So which of those words are determiners, which of them are adverbs, and which of them are prepositions? So pause it now whilst you have a go, and then press play when you're ready for the answers. Okay, so here are the answers. So the determiners, we had all, an, and those. Our adverbs, okay, so they describe how something is done. It was quickly and silently. And prepositions, we've got towards, under, and before. So remember, our determiners are the words that come before a noun. Okay, so at the end of your reading today, Mrs. Twit had just landed back in the garden after Mr. Twit's terrible stretching trick. Okay. Now, here it says, "I'll get you for this," shouted Mrs. Twit. She was floating down right on top of him. Now that is a clue that there's going to be another trick coming in the story. So today we are going to be planning and writing Mrs. Twit's revenge. Okay, so our learning objective today is to write in the style of Roald Dahl. So pause it now so you can write your LO and then press play when you're ready to continue. Oh, sorry, I've gone way too far. So, what we need to think about then today, before writing in the style of Roald Dahl, is who will play the trick, what will the trick be, and where will the trick take place. Okay, so we're going to plan and then write Mrs. Twit's revenge trick. So think about who, if it's Mrs. Twit's revenge, who's going to be playing the trick, what could the trick be, and where will it take place. Okay, so remember the way that Roald Dahl plans his trick chapters and use this to help you with your writing. So in just a second we're going to read through the last trick about the frog, and whilst we're reading I want you to look out for these different things. Okay, so think about how Roald Dahl in his other tricks in the other chapters of the book, how he sets it out and how he structures the explanation of the trick. So how he shows the reader why that character is playing the trick, telling the reader what the trick will be, the description of setting up the trick, how the trick begins, the perpetrator's behaviour during the trick, and the victim's reaction, as well as a humorous ending. Okay? There we go. Right. So I've got it all sectioned out there for you. So up here then, to pay her back for the glass eye in his beer. So that tells us straight away what the purpose is of the trick. So why is that trick happening? Okay, why is Mr. Twit playing the trick? And then it tells the reader, Roald Dahl tells the reader what the trick will be. Mr. Twit decided he would put a frog in Mrs. Twit's bed. So then that first sentence, the front of the adverbial tells us why he's playing the trick, and the rest of that sentence tells the reader what the trick will be. So straight away in that first sentence, Roald Dahl has told us that information. Okay, so the next part then in blue, in this blue box here, that's the description of setting up the trick. So it tells us exactly what Mr. Twit had to do in order to set up the trick. Okay, everything he had to do before it took place. So he caught a big one down by the pond and carried it back secretly in a box. That night, when Mrs. Twit was in the bathroom getting ready for bed, Mr. Twit slipped the frog between her sheets. Then he got into his own bed and waited for the fun to begin. Okay, so here in orange, this tells us how the trick begins. Okay, so what happens here? So Mrs. Twit came back and climbed into her bed and put out the light. She lay there in the dark, scratching her tummy. Her tummy was always itching. So just there, it tells us how the trick begins. And then we've got the perpetrator's behaviour. So the person that did the trick, which is Mr. Twit in this one, what's his behaviour? So we remember from last time, we talked about this last week, he acts as if he doesn't know what's going on. So what's the matter with you, Mr. Twit said. And then he tries to make it even worse and make her even more scared by saying, "I'll bet it's that giant skillywiggler I saw on the floor just now. I tried to kill it, but it got away. It's got teeth like screwdrivers. It'll bite off your toes." And then we have the victim's reaction. So the victim is the person that's having the trick being played on, which is Mrs. Twit, and she fainted. Okay, and then we have the humorous ending, which is this last bit here in purple. Mrs. Twit leapt out of bed and flew downstairs and spent the night on the sofa. The frog went to sleep on her pillow. So it's got a funny ending there as well. Okay, so in order for you to write your next chapter in the story about Mrs. Twit's revenge, so we know that Mrs. Twit's going to want to get revenge on Mr. Twit for that trick. Okay, so what will she do? Have a little think. You can plan it out, and then you're going to have a go at writing it as well. Okay, so you can plan this out in your book. What will the trick involve? How will the trick be set up? How does the trick begin? How does the trickster, so the perpetrator, how do they behave? How does the victim react? And how does the how does the victim react? How does the victim react? So that last one, you can think about what the humorous ending could be. Okay? So, what you'll be doing then in your book, I want you to have a go at writing your next chapter, okay, in the story about Mrs. Twit's Revenge. So use what you've just done here, okay, have a mind map it out, or you can do the boxes like this, just put a few notes in, and then have a go at writing your next chapter, all right? Follow that same style that Roald Dahl used. If you're not sure, you can always drag the video back to here, okay, and think about all the different colours and what Roald Dahl has done with that structure. Okay, so there isn't any speech and any dialogue until down here. Okay, so how can you show your reader why they're playing the trick, why Mrs. Twits will be playing the trick, and what the trick is going to be. Okay, now it can be any trick you like. You can make it up entirely. It might be a trick that's been played on you before, or perhaps it's a trick that you've played on somebody before. But make sure you get all of those different parts in that same structure that Roald Dahl used. Okay, so you can leave this chapter plan here, but if it's more helpful to scroll back to the coloured bit of the text to help you with that, that's absolutely fine. So just remember how you're going to engage the reader and excite the reader, and the idea is that it's humorous, so you want to make your reader laugh. Okay, so here are your main steps to try and get within that chapter. So why play the trick? What will the trick involve? How will the trick be set up? How does the trick begin? How does the trickster act? How does the victim react? And how does the trick end? So that is kind of your checklist there, really. That's the order that it's going to be in. Okay, those different events are going to happen within this chapter. So use that to help you. Okay, now this might take a little bit longer than usual. It's a big writing task on a Monday morning. Take your time. If you don't finish it today, that's absolutely fine. Just continue with it tomorrow. Okay, just have a go, remember. Well done, guys. I can't wait to see what your next chapters look like. See you later.
Good morning, class 3 and 4. You have got me today and tomorrow for your maths, and then Miss Cunnington is going to take over for the rest of the week. So we are going to start off today by exploring horizontal and vertical lines. Okay, guys, so we're going to start off with this. So a line that runs from left to right across the page is called a what type of line? So this blue line here is going across the page. What is it called? Okay, so I'm hoping that you thought it was a horizontal line. It's like the horizon, it goes across. So what about a line that runs straight up and down the page? What is that called? A vertical line, okay? Up and down, vertical, across, horizontal. So what do we call a line that is not horizontal or vertical? A diagonal line. So, can you jot down for me in your book, or just think in your head, how many horizontal lines are there and how many vertical lines are there? Pause me while you do this, come back when you're ready. Okay, hopefully you have had a go at that. So, we're going to count the horizontal lines first, the ones that are going across the page. I'm going to draw a diagonal line through them to cross when I've counted them. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those. So there's 5 horizontal lines. And then our vertical lines, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. Okay, hopefully you all got that one all right. Okay, guys, so for this one, you need to decide whether the shapes have got horizontal lines, vertical lines, or both. You can jot them in your book, you can think them in your head, say them out loud, that's fine. Just pause me so you can see them, and then unpause me and we'll go through the answers together. Okay, number 1. as you can see, it has got horizontal lines here and here, but it's also got vertical lines. So for that one, it is both. For the second one, the triangle, it has got one vertical line, the other two are diagonal lines, so that's not an option, so we just write vertical, or V. Now this one here has got two horizontal lines. These two are diagonal, so again, we'll just put a H in there for horizontal. And this shape here, it's got a number of horizontal lines and a number of vertical, so that one is again both. Hopefully you all got that one, and that is okay. So this one is looking at lines of symmetry. So it wants vertical lines, so we're going from the top down like this. Now, hopefully we all remember from last year that a line of symmetry is when a shape is reflected perfectly on either side. So I'm going to do the first one for you. I'm going to draw a line straight down the middle. Obviously, it would be better if I had a ruler of this shape. So it is the same on both sides. It is a mirror reflection, okay? Where do you think that the line of symmetry would go on this shape and this shape? You can do it with your finger on the screen, or you can just think it. Where would it go? Okay, so hopefully you've thought that this would go straight down the middle here and straight down the middle there. Okay, so for your do it today, using a ruler, I would like you to draw a vertical line that is 8 centimeters long. And for number 2, I'd like you to draw a horizontal line that is 11 centimeters long. Number 3 asks you how many vertical and horizontal lines does the artwork have? And number 4 asks you to draw a shape that has at least 2 horizontal lines and 3 vertical lines. Okay, so if you want to pause me and do that, you can then go on to your secure it, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to go through the answers for you. So your secure it says, considering the lines of symmetry, which shape is the odd one out? Explain your answer. So you need to look, consider, have they got vertical or horizontal lines of symmetry? And that should be able to put one as the odd one out. Okay, so I'm hoping you've all had a go at your do it now. So we're going to go through the answers. So for question 1 or 2, I can't show you an answer, but using a ruler, measure along. Long as you have drawn your vertical line going up and down your page and it measures 8 centimeters, you are correct. And as long as your horizontal line is going across the page and is 11 centimeters, you are correct. Number 3, how many vertical and horizontal lines does the artwork have? So for vertical lines, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you should have got that there was 8 vertical lines. And horizontal, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you should have had 8 vertical lines and 5 horizontal lines. For number 4, draw a shape that has at least 2 horizontal lines and 3 vertical lines. Now there are a number of different shapes you could have done for this, but I've just popped 2 on there that they might look something like that. Okay, let's have a look at your secure it. So you needed to consider the lines of symmetry, which shape is the odd one out. So if we have a little look at Y, number 1, we've got a vertical line of symmetry there. There wouldn't be a horizontal one because the top half is not the same as the bottom, so vertical. Number 2, it's got a vertical line of symmetry. Again, it doesn't have a horizontal line because the top is different to the bottom. 3, it's got a vertical line of symmetry. Again, can't have a horizontal one because it wouldn't be a mirror image. Number 4, wonky line, it's got a horizontal line of symmetry and a vertical line of symmetry. So I'm hoping that you have put 4 is the odd one out because it has both a vertical and horizontal line of symmetry, whereas the others only have a vertical line of symmetry. Okay, I hope you found this okay. If you've got any problems or any questions, just email me. I'm more than happy to go over it with you, and I will see you for our tomorrow's math session. Bye!